Given that they have this track record, why do you think this particular trip got blown up so much in terms of like the coverage? I think like for the last 2 weeks, basically the only China news that anybody's been talking about was will she or won't she go to Taiwan? What'll happen? And then when she did go, it was very much framed as like she defied China. It was interesting to see some of this messaging that looked a lot like, Chinese Communist Party propaganda coming through the Western media.
Right. So I also think there's a tension in China because, as you mentioned, there are a lot of there are a lot of super nationalists in China, and they want to invade Taiwan. I mean, these are the regular, let's say, Communist Party officials or just people in China, are super nationalists, and so I think the CCP also has the reverse job of making sure people don't get really too excited because they don't want they want to control the outcome. So if they don't want war, they really don't want people doing things on their own to start a war. So I think some of those comments coming out of the Chinese press were the super nationalists trying to push the CCP to do something to do an invasion. But I don't think an invasion was planned. I had another interview where someone asked me, "Well, why don't you think there was going to be an invasion?" I said, "Well, first of all, we have a large number of U.S. ships in the area. They're on alert. RIMPAC is just finishing with 38 other ships from other countries nearby. We have 5 flat decks, which are like we had 2 aircraft carriers and a couple of helicopter carriers in the area. So this is not the time to do something because we're ready for it. I mean, the idea behind doing something is to surprise people, to get them off guard. And in this time, we were ready. So I think also the Pelosi and the rest of the delegation, they timed it right in terms of having sort of maximum force available should something happen. And I think any thoughts of invasion were deterred, even if there weren't any. But if there were any thoughts, the U.S. was ready, and also the Taiwanese military is also involved in exercises right now. So everybody's ready, and so I don't think that the invasion was ever going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, like, is there something that the U.S. could do that would make the Chinese Communist Party invade before they're ready?
Okay, so there's a list in the annual report that Congress puts out, and also the Pentagon puts out, that lists things that they think would cause the CCP to order the PLA to invade. For example, one is if foreign forces establish a base in Taiwan, if the Taiwanese get nuclear weapons, if Taiwan declares independence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a list that we think will cause the PRC or the CCP to do something, but we're actually not 100% sure that those are truly items. Those are based on statements that we've heard in the past about the CCP's threats to invade. And so those would be cases. So if like tomorrow Taiwan said, we're going to build a nuclear weapon, then based on our assumptions, that could be a cause for the invasion.
But isn't the CCP planning to invade anyway, like regardless of what Taiwan or the U.S. does?
Well, they would prefer to not invade and have Taiwan just say, hey, we're part of China and come on over, buddies from the CCP. That's what they hope, but that's not going to happen, obviously, in the near term. So, yes, I mean, in reality, they probably will invade, but most analysts evaluating the Chinese military say that China's ability still is not there yet. They could do it, but they wouldn't do it very gracefully, and it wouldn't be very pretty, and they probably would suffer a lot. Most people put the prediction of a couple of years out, as you've quoted before, Admiral Davidson, before he retired, he predicted 2027 would be the time when the Chinese military would probably be fully ready for some kind of invasion. But even if they're fully ready, they might not choose to do an invasion. So again, most analysts today say they're not really ready to do a good job at invasion. They would have a lot of losses, and it could become a long, drawn-out war, which is what they don't want.
So when the Biden administration said ahead of Pelosi's trip that this is not the right time, like isn't it actually the perfect time?
I think so. I also think that, as I mentioned, there's a tension between President Biden and Pelosi, and the Democrats, are not happy that Biden's ratings are so low. So it was interesting that President Biden announced the assassination of Ayman Zawahiri, the number one guy in Al Qaeda, just a day or two before Pelosi went on her trip. So I think there is some tension about I want attention. I don't want I'm jealous of Pelosi's attention and what she's getting.
I don't see how Biden thinks that a CIA drone strike is going to help his approval ratings. But
well,
anyway.
it's you remember President Biden was Vice President Biden when President Obama ordered the taking out of bin Laden. Obama got a lot of positive kudos for doing that, and so I guess each president has to get his equivalent. I mean, even Trump got the credit of taking out Soleimani, the IRGC head of the IRGC in Baghdad. So it seems like a trend that everybody has to have their bad guy taken out during their term.
So who is President Harris planning to take out?
I guess the list of bad guys is getting smaller and smaller.
That's okay. She'll figure it out. I have faith in her.
Yes.
I mean, I do wonder, because you're saying this is possibly a domestic political issue between the Biden administration and Pelosi, but the way that the Pelosi's trip was handled by the executive, like not just Biden saying that, the military didn't, or the DOD didn't think it was a good idea, but then also he got COVID, so he didn't really say anything else for the next 2 weeks. But there were a lot of leaks from like anonymous Biden administration officials to like the New York Times or something like that, kind of hand wringing over how this is a bad idea and it's really risky. I mean, that seems like it just gives the Chinese Communist Party an opening to escalate the situation. I just don't, I guess I feel like I don't understand why they thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, so some people think that, not some people, but I guess the outside observer would say that the U.S. government, the executive and the legislature, were sending mixed messages to the CCP. I mean, that's clearly what was going on. As you know, there are people in the U.S. government who don't want to scare or are scared by words coming out of the CCP. So they don't want to ruffle feathers. And as we saw, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, when President Trump was leaving office, called his counterpart in China to tell him that if the U.S. was going to attack them, that he would give them a call. And we have the same, almost same kind of attitude today, where just like he did during the Trump administration, I think he did the same thing in effect by saying, it's not a good time. Well, it's never a good time to piss off the Chinese if you're always worried about what they're thinking. I mean, we have to do what we think is right. It's not based on what they think that we should do. The classic term that I refer to is kowtow, kurtao in Chinese, which is, the bowing that the Qing dynasty made people do before they went to meet the emperor. Well, I think the CCP wants the rest of the world to kowtow to anything they say. So when they say something, they want people to jump. They don't want people to ignore them. They want people to follow what they say. And if they don't follow what they say, they want people to get punished. Like little babies. Like I didn't get my way, so I'm going to slap you because you didn't follow what I said. And I think that this is their style, their attitude. And I think, in effect, the CCP has taken over what the Qing dynasty wanted their vassal states to do, is kowtow to them and do everything that they want to do. And when people don't want to do it, then they scream and moan and they try to punish them.
Yeah, that was why I think it was interesting to see like Western media reports like framing it as like Pelosi defies China, as if the Chinese regime has the final say over who should go to Taiwan or not.
Right. I mean, if you look at the Reagan administration with the six assurances, this was a backlash to the Carter administration. The six assurances says we will not consult with China on arms sales to Taiwan. In other words, China does not have any say in what we sell or negotiate with Taiwan. And there's a whole list of them. We've had different kinds of administrations with different attitudes towards Taiwan and China. And so I think in this case, we have the legislature being a bit more, let's say, forceful, and the current and the president's administration being a bit in the kowtow arena. So I think there is a tension. It's not clear if the Biden administration will take up what Speaker Pelosi did. Now, the other thing we don't know is, some of this, getting into kind of a conspiratorial arena, we don't really know how much of this stuff was intentional, played out, making Biden look weak and making Pelosi look strong. We also don't know what President Biden and Speaker Pelosi said to each other about what messages they were going to be delivering to each of the countries she went to. So there could be some behind the scenes negotiations going on that we're not aware of because it's not public information. But we always have to consider that there's other kinds of messages being sent that are not public. And also, as you recall, since you mentioned President Biden's COVID, recall also he had a conversation with Xi Jinping before Pelosi's visit to Asia. And again, we don't really have a clear idea of what was discussed there. I mean, clearly, I think that I'm sure that Xi Jinping said something like this. We understand that Speaker Pelosi's coming. We don't like it, but we're not going to start a war. That's what I think. And President Biden said, well, thank you very much. I'm glad you're saying that. And then Xi Jinping says, but once she leaves, we're going to do a bunch of military things that you might not be happy about. So I think there were some discussions that we don't know about. But it's clear that everyone seems to be pretty calm about what happened. It didn't seem like there was a lot of bluster when she was here. Once she left, then things got a little more exciting.